On today's show, we're asking the question, when we have two very similar instruments, an all-solid spruce and rosewood Laureate and a Yairi Masterworks with the exact same wood configuration, where one is a production guitar and the other's handmade, what's the differences in the approach to the build?
Some major bends in there. Is that hurting?
I don't know, I've got some serious indentation going on in that one finger.
Yeah, and not really, and on a parlor as well.
Yeah.
Although the scale length's a bit shorter, so it's
Actually it's not too bad. It does feel quite compact.
Nice work, mate.
Thank you, mate.
Hi everybody.
Hi guys.
Welcome back.
How you doing?
Two great guitars here and a pretty interesting show.
Yeah, I mean, they are identical in spec,
Yeah.
really, in terms of in wood. So we've got two 70s. We've got I'm playing the Yairi Masterworks PYM70, and you're playing our new
Laureate LP70e.
So beautiful Sitka tops, Indian Rosewood back and sides. But we want to talk today about processes around the build, because one's a production guitar, and it represents the highest level of our production.
Yeah, that's true.
Of course. And the other one is a luthier made instrument made by hand. But they're both made by hand, really, aren't they?
Kind of. Yeah. They are really.
Where's it all kind of start? What's the first part of that process?
Woods, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, you are right. They're both. I mean, the top on this is wonderful. The top on that is wonderful, and the backs and sides are both really, really high quality East Indian Rosewood. So I think on that level, we have some parity, really. But they've been sitting in Carney for a very, very long time.
This is the thing about Yairi, isn't it? They're in an incredible position of having all this. Obviously, you know that backwards, but how much wood is there?
I don't know. I think it's fair to say that there's hardly any really large stockpiles of Tonewwood. There's not many left in the world that I've seen anyway. In fact, really impressive amounts you see seldom. And amounts that have been curing naturally for a long time because it's money.
Yeah.
You could have millions of dollars sitting there. Seeing that is very, very rare.
So you were telling me ages ago about how earlier on, 70s, 60s, 70s, 70s, 80s, when Mr. Yairi's business really took off, he invested very heavily in wood, yeah?
You know, some people, when they become successful, they buy houses, cars, airplanes, you know, in our industry as well, and they do other things with, and that's fine, you know,
Yeah.
and that's no problem. What he did was he remained very much the person he always was, which was, you know, he's from a smaller town in north of Nagoya, in Carney, in Gifu. He invested in his business, and he just bought and bought and bought wood, but he also built houses for the workers and his family, and bought bits of land to store more wood on, and it was all about guitar making.
Yeah.
And sustainable, or sustaining that. So now, over the years, it gets replenished. You get to a stage where you have this thing, this entity that you can replenish from time to time. And when you replenish it, that also goes to the back of the queue and takes years to get used again.
So when we're talking about, the Sitka tops on this guitar, for example, how long has this been around?
I don't
for?
know, but their mode of operation is, they'll it's a long-term thing.
Yeah.
And because you already start with a pile, or you get to a level where you have a huge stockpile of Tonewoods, it's the replenishment. As I said, it goes to the back of the queue, so it takes years to get used.
But there will be there'll be a lengthy time.
Yeah, it'll be years.
I guess what I'm trying to get to is that obviously the tops are hand selected for these guitars, but and we've covered this, haven't we, in a previous episode, which we can.
So in modern guitar making, when guitar making became guitar production, I think we've talked about before, maybe there was a couple of sea changes in the industry, 60s, late 60s, so in the 80s, and then others even in the 90s, where we needed to make tens of thousands of guitars instead of hundreds. Your stockpiles of tone would soon disappear, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So now we accelerate wood. Everybody does it. You buy wood. We have the clever drying machines and processes and torrefaction and all that sort of stuff. The fact that this top is much younger than that top, it still went through a process. It's still hand selected. It's still a great piece of Sitka. And then we get into the more difficult subject of quantifying what that actually does, because there's so much else has gone on with that guitar. How much is the top lending to it? How much is that top lending to the tone of that instrument more than this one, based on the fact that it naturally cued where this one was accelerated?
Right, okay.
Don't know, right?
Yeah.
Yes, we would think something, but because it's now a guitar, it's hard for us to say it's to what level that's influencing it. Same with the backs and sides. I'm sure those backs and sides have sat in Carney for at least 5 years.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's something we'd have to try to measure before they become instruments, really.
So what is the beginning of the process, and how do we kind of move on from the very
I think the
start?
Not after, but the other thing that is not immediately apparent is the people, because when you look at an instrument, some people consider the people who've made it, and many don't. But the people who made this instrument are qualified guitar builders. Many of them can make a whole guitar. Many of them some went to college. Certainly some have had long apprenticeships, and certainly some of them have been at a bench for a very long time and are very, very qualified. So it's made by different craftspeople. But this guitar has also been made by very skilled people, but very highly skilled in certain parts of guitar making.
Right.
Many of the people in our Alvarez factory can't make a whole guitar.
Yeah.
But what they do, what they're in, production is about separating jobs. So there's like positions, there's production positions. They do wonderfully, and they're experts at what they do. People who buff this instrument, they're great buffers. I mean, they're really great polishing in guitars. Or the two guys who paint the guitars. But they probably can't put frets in. Where the person who made this guitar, or the people who made this guitar, I should say, most of them can probably do everything.
But it's still a process, isn't it? It's still a line, right?
And in Yairi, there's obviously still machines.
Yeah.
But the difference between the chisel and the handwork and the machine work for the critical jobs is very different to this factory.
Yeah.
Where it's all production positions and different things. So we design an instrument, and then you design how that's made. You design an instrument here, they know how it's made.
Previously, you'd said something like this particular line was made with a kind of a luthier approach.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you sort of quantify that?
So Laureate so we hand select the components. When you go to a factory and you see all of these components, some are bought in, some are made at the factory. there may be some grading, especially on tops and backs and sides, but I don't know factories that grade things like kerfing or side braces or bridge plates, for example.
Right.
So with the Laureate, our approach was to take more of a Benchmade, because in Yairi and other handmade processes, they hand select everything.
Yes.
And especially a luthier who's making a guitar will go further and maybe even hand select those components based on what he wants it to sound like, and maybe even who it's for, and how they play the guitar. So all of a sudden you've got this massive, you're plugging into this massive piece of experience and skill and years of knowing what to do and how to approach the build, which has a value, right?
Of course.
And that's the difference really in when, if you talk about cost, it's like time, knowledge, experience.
Yeah.
And hopefully you're getting something more for that with regard to the instrument. So as we've said, these are both great guitars, but the nuances and the subtleties and slight articulations, they are there, and so they should be.
Yeah, of course.
So I think people are very important, wood curing components. So in this, out of all those components in the factory, we choose braces and we choose bridge plates based on grain, stiffness, aesthetic qualities, etc. So that's more like a luthier approach.
Yeah.
So everything that this guitar is made from, there's a lot of consideration gone into that, rather than it's just somebody grabbing another maple bridge plate to use.
Yeah. Where on a top like this, the luthier is listening to that top and then perhaps using a chisel or a tool to carve out parts of that, maybe the bracing to give it a different kind of voice.
And we'd start with a piece of wood, so it's like thickness sanding is really important. So somebody who can look at a piece of Sitka and say, I'm going to take that down to 2.8 or 2.6 mil or whatever it might be, knowing that top is stiff enough to shape it, point something of a mil more. That takes experience, right?
Of course. That's happening in both environments,
It is,
right?
to a certain extent, but on this, we've already spec'd that from the beginning.
Okay.
So what we would say is, this is the quality of top we're going to use for Laureate.
Yeah.
And this is the thickness we're gonna sand it to.
Right.
So nobody's making a decision beyond that. Where this is, somebody may make another decision. And as Mr. Yairi said, that lovely saying, luthiers listen with their hands. It's a great saying.
Yeah, that's great.
It makes it, all of a sudden everything becomes like...
We just stop for a second and think about that phrase.
so
Everything's there, isn't it, right?
And that takes a lot of time, a bit, listening with your hands.
Yeah.
It's like, so somebody's making a decision right from the top before the bracing. So then we're applying the bracing. So on this one, the bracing is cut by CNC. And then on Laureate, we hand finish that bracing with a light sanding. We've chosen the best quarter sawn bracing, so the grain in the braces is straight. But it's all within realms of parameters and specifications.
Yeah.
Where this one,
There's a kind of a finishing process.
there's a finishing process, but all of there's no decisions made on the spot.
Yes.
They're all made before the production. So like, basically, it's a recipe. And I don't mean that in a derogative way. It's a very, very considered recipe that we've made many samples saying, that doesn't work, that does work, that doesn't work. Okay, this is how we're going to make this guitar. And we're going to spec out every single thing. This is the quality of bridge plate, this is the quality of bracing. But after that, there isn't any decision making throughout the build. It's all done at the beginning. Where in this one, there's many, many decisions being made throughout the build. Yeah. And that's because the people who are doing that have the experience, the knowledge to do it. So bracing, where this bracing, the top goes down. We know it's for Laureate, so it's the best top from the best pile of tops in the factory that we've already graded. Then the bracing goes on. It's pre-made, so it's pre-cut by CNC machine to our exact standards that we've already... So we hand design that bracing, and then it's machined perfectly to that. And then a worker who's very experienced in this, a template goes on, the bracing goes down, and it's glued. And then on this model, it's hand sanded, make sure it's perfectly clean, but there's no chisel work on it.
Yeah.
This one, somebody put some big old braces on there, and then they start removing mass.
Tune it to the.
They tune it,
Yeah.
they tap it, and they're removing mass.
Yeah.
Making many, many, many decisions, which is much longer. So somebody just working on that top could be a couple of days.
Yeah.
Somebody working on this top could be 5 minutes,
Yeah.
10 minutes. So
Yeah.
like, again, it's about time, knowledge, all that sort of stuff.
Of course.
So still lots of consideration in this, but it's all done at the front end. And still lots of consideration in this done at the front end, but then lots of other refinement in
there's still a recipe, there's still a roadmap.
Correct.
But it's those little decisions, those tweakings.
Yeah.
I'm gonna add a bit more.
Bit more black pepper.
Yeah, a few more herbs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, and that's it. If we want to, like, you know, add some culinary
analogies. But the necks, for example, though, I mean, you famously talked about this, the guy who spoke shaves the neck.
So one guy here, he's been there such a long time. Every neck is spoke shaved,
Right.
by hand with an old-fashioned spoke shave, and it's. I tried to explain this to you, and I didn't want to sound like too flowery, but there's something when you work wood with your hands and traditional tools. I don't know what it is. It's something, maybe
like a real connection to
this.
Okay, we are going to sound a bit about like the spirit of it or something, right?
Something soulful. I don't want to sound too flowery, because CNC machines do things exactly the way you tell them.
Yeah.
And they're very
because at the same
they never
time
have a day off.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
They don't go on holiday.
Yeah.
You know, so there's all of those things. But like, when you work wood with hand, or you're just shaving stuff with beautiful Japanese tools, and you know, they can cut through anything. You know, it's like, I don't know what it is. I personally feel there's something happens there.
Yes, but also, I mean, we've probably all seen that great piece of film where and it's on our Instagram somewhere, isn't it? Where the guitars are sitting in a room and they're being played classical music. They're just to give them that.
It's that
sense.
approach. It's that respect.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this neck has been cut by a CNC machine, which is a very modern multi-axis CNC, and it cuts it exactly perfectly to how we program that machine every single day. Where this guitar, somebody's made, again, making decisions, taking time.
Yeah.
Feeling that neck, whatever is going through his mind. I'll just take this off, or maybe this wood suits a little bit more V here, or C there, you know, whatever shape-wise. But it takes longer, it takes experience, and it takes knowledge. But somebody has thought about the player. We've thought about the player here too, but the machine doesn't, obviously. Where in the process, in the build, the player is still considered here.
Yes. But what springs to my mind is that they are essentially same, very, very similar guitars. They have ebony, they have high appointments, they have a very considered, high parts grade of tops, everything else. All solid guitars that are going to start and grow with a person as a player.
They're all solid. They're very considered. This is wonderfully built. This is wonderfully designed and put together. And as our good friend George will say, these guitars are the worst they'll ever sound. They're brand new. Yeah. And all solids. But this guitar quality get better and better and more open and more responsive, and they just get better. But
this guitar is the relative of this guitar. It's the little brother of this guitar, because all of the design and the whole idea behind the process of this has filtered down to that, hasn't it?
We can influence both ways. Because we make so many guitars, so many more guitars in the Alvarez factory, and have had to work through so many processes. Yeah. You do learn stuff, and sometimes by chance, actually, and sometimes deliberately, and we prove things. For example, the bracing in this, I probably made 12 guitars in 30 to 45 days with very slight differences in the bracing to see what would happen.
But you can do that.
We can do
because those guitars are identical, in so many ways, where it's more difficult to do it on this because each guitar has got its own voice.
For me to say,
right?
make me 12 guitars with very, very tiny differences of bracing, one, it takes a very long time, it's a lot of money, it's a lot of expense, and you might not find the answer, where in that production model, you can sample very quickly. So personally, I've learned a lot in our Alvarez factory, and of course masses, and probably more in the Yairi factory. But I think it's not just, I wouldn't say that one is influencing everything. I think there's we learn in both sides.
Okay.
So I think that's important to say. And I think that when you listen to these guitars, and we've got Parlors, because that's what we had at the studio at the moment, which is, if we'd had the Dreadnought versions. And I'm glad we did it with Parlors, actually, because we've been very gentle playing them, and if we get to the differences in tone, I presume we'll do an A and B and stuff.
Yeah, sure, definitely.
Like, this guitar is absolutely more responsive than this guitar to a very trained. It's not like massively audible, but if somebody is at the level of buying a $3,000 guitar, they will hear it.
Yes.
And even more so, they will feel it. If they are at that level, where many people might pick this up and they can't tell the difference.
Yeah.
Because they're just not able to. Where we play guitars all the time and make them. And
we're kind of focused on that last 5% all the time.
That last 5-10%, I was just talking to Sam about that. It's like that last 5 or 10% that's making the difference. So this guitar, to me, I was super impressed, especially, when you play sort of quietly, it's got such sustain. For a parlor. So when I picked this up, I was like, and then I thought, wow. But when you play this guitar, instantly it feels different.
Yeah.
It's like...
It's lighter.
It's lighter. And it just feels different when you're... And... That's a pretty dynamic palette for a parlor.
Yeah, it is. It is.
But hadn't I played that, that's probably one of the best parlors, I think.
Yeah.
Beautiful sound. But this guitar is better. And I say that, however, this guitar is a great guitar. And I can personally hear in its tonality, there's a lot of colour and things going on that I hope is because of all the time we took and the approach to selecting all those components.
Yeah.
That extra 5 or 10% that you're getting here, because we are experienced, we can feel and hear that more, I think, in this guitar is coming from all of those differences in decision making throughout the build. So although we're getting close, this guitar, being a handmade guitar, to me and to you, I think, is still there. It's still ahead.
Yeah.
And this is a bloody awesome parlor. I was blown away by it.
It's beautiful.
Its voice is amazing. And whether you think that people working wood by hand adds soul, adds magic, adds whatever, I believe in that.
Some people may just believe the magic's in the wood. It's
because it's sat there for such a long time as well. But there's also magic in design.
Yes.
And there's also magic not just in product design, but production design. Different things. And great production design helps to achieve your initial product design or even your dream product. And there's still production design here. But on top of that, there's 1,000 decisions being made along the way.
Yeah. Great. Love that.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Good.
Enjoyed that.
Good little journey. But but anyway, we'll play them both.
Yeah, we will.
And they're both great guitars, and hopefully you'll think so too.
Wonderful.
See everybody.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, click the like button and consider subscribing to our channel. If you want to watch more videos like this one, click the video on the screen now.